We'd like to remind everyone to please silence your mobile devices. To help with sound quality, make sure to speak clearly and directly in your microphone, and mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If anyone is having trouble hearing at any point during the meeting, please raise your hand, and someone with an audio assistance device will assist you. Thank you.
City Clerk Kavanaugh, would you please call the roll?
It's not on.
Commissioner Rydell?
Here.
Commissioner Wasserman?
Here.
Commissioner Brody?
Here.
Vice Mayor Raley?
Here.
Mayor Welch?
Here.
City Manager Rose?
Here.
Deputy City Attorney Mahaffey?
Here.
This is very awkward. Can I ask everyone to rise and please will for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being conducted live with a fiscal quorum present, and the material for today's meeting is available online at www.coconutcreek.net, and the meeting is being broadcast live. We'll now begin the strategic planning session for the fiscal year 2026 budget. City Manager Rose, will you open the discussion?
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. This is only, I think, the second time we've done, not working?
So how do I turn it on? Because
Am I on? I'm on? Now I'm on. Oh, now I'm on. This is the very first step that we're taking in the budget preparation process, and it's an unusual process. Last year we started this, and we had some very significant budget priorities to talk through. So the message last year, in my mind, was pretty clear. We had some public safety projects that needed to be funded, and we wanted to make sure we worked with you, but clarified what we're already doing and got a consensus to move forward with those priority projects, which were the fire department, the police remodel, and the Main Street project. And we were well into those, and you'll hear more about those. This is, again, that kind of strategic planning, but it's the high-level discussion. We don't even have the revenue numbers in place, but this is your opportunity to weigh in on the budget before even the staff prepares their budgets. So it's just the big, broad, general, are there things that you see that we're doing that we shouldn't be doing, or things that you would like to see us do to add? We cannot commit that we will add them. We can commit that we will evaluate each of the items that are discussed tonight and prioritize them. We're going to talk a little bit about a prioritization process, but it is just that general overview. We also think that we probably need to talk about some strategic issues associated with the DOGE and the Trump administration, and whether we ought to be revisiting some of our strategic goals, or at least the language in our strategic goals, because they are woven throughout our budget process. It's very possible that we can modify some language while keeping the intent, but clearly I think one of the things that's unique about Coconut Creek is our environmental sustainability. So we'll be looking at all those items. So I ask you actually just to think about that. We'll probably talk individually about the process for addressing our website and our posture as it relates to being prepared for federal grants. And with that, I'm going to turn it to both Peter Gay and Veronica, who've done a lot of work, just giving us the background on where we are and what we have already in the works. And there are a lot of things already in the works. It's only March, and we have a lot of time before October, so we have some priorities that were budgeted last year that we're still working on. So we're going to give you a briefing on that, and then take your input on future priorities. So thanks. Peter Gay, if you want to take it from there.
All right, thank you. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commission, everyone, good evening, and welcome to the fiscal year 26 budget strategic planning session. So tonight we're eager to hear your input about your vision for the upcoming fiscal year. Our agenda tonight includes a brief overview of the budget process, highlights of major upcoming capital projects, a discussion on budget requests that are currently under consideration or that we've already received from the Commission, and then we'll end with an opportunity for you to present any additional budget requests for the upcoming fiscal year. Following this workshop, we'll compile a list of all the proposed initiatives, programs, and projects for the Commission to categorize and then return to us. It's similar to the process that we did last year. This will help us shape the fiscal year 26 proposed budget, and once we receive your input, we'll summarize the results, identify any items that may require further discussion before we present the fiscal year 26 proposed budget. So with that, let's get started, and I'll turn it over to Veronica.
Oh, and we have presentations.
Harder to see from the round table.
It is. Can you see them okay?
The city's strategic plan, Vision 2030, continues to serve as the foundation for driving our initiatives, programs, and projects, and it establishes clear goals and objectives, shapes the budgeting process, guides service implementation, and provides a roadmap for maintaining our high standards. To uphold the city's vision, mission, and core values, the strategic plan will be the cornerstone of the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget, emphasizing continuous improvement in the 5 key areas of focus: adaptability and progressive mobility, safety and quality of life, high-performance government, smart growth, and sustainable environment. The budget process spans approximately 11 months, beginning with internal planning in December and concluding in early November when the adopted budget is submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association for the Distinguished Budget Award, an honor the city has proudly received for the past 25 years. Currently, we are in the budget strategic planning workshop phase held in March, where we discuss priorities that may impact the budget with the City Commission. In March through April, departments submit budget requests and propose capital improvement projects based on parameters set by the Finance Department. Currently, departments are midway through the required deliverables for this budget season. In addition, your priorities will be incorporated, evaluated, and prioritized to shape the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget. In April, the city will host the Town Hall Budget Meeting on April 22nd, Tuesday at 6 p.m. to gather input from residents. In July, the proposed budget will be finalized for the City Commission to review. In August, a budget workshop will be held with City Commission to discuss the proposal. In September, public budget hearings are conducted. And in October, the new fiscal year begins. Throughout the process, each department ensures its budget aligns with the city's strategic goals by exploring innovative approaches to achieving objectives, leveraging departmental expertise, maintaining service excellence while emphasizing quality improvement and fiscal accountability. New budget requests must include detailed justifications and are ranked by priority. Through a collaborative approach, staff determines which requests are incorporated into the proposed budget, balancing commission input, available funding, and competing priorities. Peter Gay will now provide an overview of some of the upcoming fiscal year 2026 initiatives, programs, and projects.
All right, thank you, Veronica. Coconut Creek continues to provide exceptional, responsive, and sustainable services for our community. I'm excited to share with you that we're making great progress with Vision 2030, and we have a variety of initiatives, programs, and projects designated to enhance the quality of life in the city. In front of you, you'll see a copy of the list of initiatives, programs, and projects for fiscal year 25 that we have compiled. It looks like this. And it basically just summarizes some of the programs that we have by key areas of focus. So this year, if you remember last year, we had blank boxes for the commission to prioritize each program. We're changing it up a little bit this year, where we're providing you with this copy, and what we ask that you do is, if there's a program you're really passionate about and you want to keep, to go ahead and highlight that. If there are ones that you think aren't really attended, or something that we may need to change or remove, go ahead and cross through it. And then return those to us along with the budget input forms and the categorization forms for us to take a look at and then make decisions moving forward for the upcoming budget year. So over the past several years, we have introduced many new initiatives that align with Vision 2030. For example, we added the Fire Cadet Program, our autism-friendly designation, the Never Forget Cultural Series, the Holocaust Memorial Project, Veterans Park improvements, the Creek Eats program, our glass recycling program, and composting pilot program. And we're also proud to say that we are well on our way with the body-worn camera program. Officers and civilian training was completed yesterday, and we now have over 80 body-worn cameras that are live in the city of Coconut Creek. So that's moving along well. The school zone speed enforcement program, we're currently waiting on the contractor to complete the permit application process so we can move forward. So once that's done and we get the permits, then we're able to move forward with the installation for that program. And lastly, the community paramedic program. Under this program, our fire and life safety specialists will conduct post-hospital release follow-up care, included but not limited to monitoring medication, home safety assessments, and provided information about existing services through public health and other agencies that we can share with our residents. And we anticipate rolling out this program at the end of April. So each of these initiatives require careful planning, coordination, and resource management. As we evaluate competing priorities, we must also recognize that personal costs, which include salary, pension, taxes, and health insurance, tend to increase faster than some of our other operating expenses. So as such, we're always working to increase efficiency, leverage technology, and use outside resources while keeping staffing levels steady. So before we continue, I did want to touch on some key financial considerations for the upcoming fiscal year. As you may recall, this year marks the first year where the homestead exemption is going to be increasing by CPI on an annual basis, and that comes at an estimated impact of about $150,000 in the first year. We're also closely monitoring several property tax proposals that are under discussion this legislative session, and there are numerous ones that are out there, so we're monitoring that to see what impacts it's going to have on the budget. And we're also following the developments of the governor's DOGE project. As part of that process, we did receive our first request that we responded to, which basically was to confirm that Coconut Creek has not experienced any financial emergencies or distress since fiscal year 2019. So we're continuing to monitor that to see what comes out of the office and what we need to plan for accordingly. So because of those factors, we're taking a cautious, responsible approach to the fiscal year 26 proposed budget. We'll continue to monitor the legislative and economic changes and adjust as needed to ensure that Coconut Creek remains financially strong while driving services for our community. So the next slide here, similar to last year, we'll be using the category classification process to organize new requests and identify major upcoming projects. This approach will help us plan effectively for the upcoming budget year. And after this workshop, we'll provide you with a list of items to categorize, which will help us prioritize our resources moving forward. So this slide basically summarizes all those classifications. It's the same as the previous year. I did want to note, though, for category 2, it mentions, including those programs, even if it means a tax or a rate increase. We do not anticipate having any property tax rate increases for the upcoming year. So I did want to point that out, that that is a priority for us to balance the budget without that. This next slide summarizes our commitment to long-term planning. As you can see, we have been proactively planning for the future, ensuring that we remain prepared for growth and continue to provide the service excellence to our community. One of the key initiatives is our capital improvement program, which focuses on the replacement, enhancement, and expansion of our infrastructure and facilities. This ensures we can meet evolving needs for our residents while maintaining our high standards. We have also adopted a Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and it lays out the future needs for our parks and helps us with connecting a more vibrant city. And after several years of anticipation, the Main Street project has also gained some momentum, and it continues to be a top priority for the city. This includes significant improvements to city-owned parcels in the Main Street area, while allowing us to really create a dynamic hub in the downtown area for Coconut Creek. In addition, we're proactively working on several other long-term planning efforts, including the Transit Master Plan, a Mobility Hub Master Plan, a Climate Action Plan, the Vulnerability Assessment Plan, bless you, and the Regional Solid Waste System. And I throw these out there because all of these are key components for the long-term planning for the city of Coconut Creek that we have to consider when we move forward with budget items. So this next slide, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but basically I just wanted to highlight our 10-year capital improvement program, which is also included as part of the packet. It's currently in draft format because we're still working on it. I know we traditionally include a 5-year CIP plan with the proposed budget, but wanted to give you the long-term view of what's on the horizon in terms of capital needs. So as you can see from this slide, we're projecting a total of $344 million in capital needs over the next 10 years. And of that, $249 million would be funded through the general fund, and that includes the Fire Station 113 PD improvements and Main Street civic space. Our primary focus for
And
this...
just to say, you see those middle years? They're a little lighter. They may stack up here in the next couple of years.
For Main Street?
Yes,
As needs stack up.
right, right. So the slide is a more summarized version of the printout, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's fine.
Those are things that candidly, I mean, let me turn the mic on if this is a roundtable. Those are things historically that we've been able to, I'll give you an example, the water meters, for example. I mean, from the first year I got sworn in, Sandy, we saw that until we got it done. Those are things that you have the ability of...
AMI over the years.
Yeah, you have the
right.
ability of kicking down the road a little bit just based on the current needs and things like that, so.
Priorities.
That's, yeah, I understand that. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, so this, we kind of focus on the next 3 years, ensuring that our near-term priorities are addressed. But it is very important for us to keep in mind that those non-recurring capital items for the outer years are not reflected in those totals. And I also wanted to point out that there are some large capital items on this sheet, and that includes Fire Station 113, which we plan to issue debt for, as well as PD department improvements, and all of that will be repaid through general fund dollars, which we've already made arrangements for during the last budget cycle. All right. So before we dive into new projects and funding requests for fiscal year 26, I'd like to highlight some of the major capital investments that were approved or initiated in fiscal year 25 and that will carry forward into fiscal year 26. So these include, the first one is Fire Station 113. We have future funding requests for approximately $28 million for construction, plus an additional $2 million to cover costs related to removing the temporary fire station, plus get in any additional equipment. We anticipate that the RFP for the design for this project will come before the City Commission at the May 8th Commission meeting, with construction scheduled to begin in March of 2027. As part of this process, several months ago, staff evaluated several different construction delivery methods and elected to use the designed bid bill method, which is currently underway right now. This method basically results in lower cost projects due to the competitive nature of the process, and it also separates the design team from the construction team, which helps with any perceived conflicts. This method was selected after evaluating the balance between the scope of the project, any control that's needed and oversight from the city, as well as risk and the time and the cost that's involved in that large project.
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah, me too.
Is that definitive that when we go out for construction, that we won't use a different type of bid, one that I think I forwarded over that might have the option to not include as many change orders, and we really lock in the dollar amount of what we've extended towards this construction? I'd like to see if we would be able to consider utilizing that design, building, construction management at risk over the hard bid, especially for the fire station and the administration building, so that we don't have those. We encountered this during the construction of Station 50, and they kind of held us captive so that we could get it done and get in there and get the firefighters where they needed to be, which was in the building. But they really kind of held us hostage for all the change orders and the things that occurred after the fact. But I just would hope that we put ourselves in a position to not be able to encounter that, and being more proactive on the type of bid.
I'd like you to explain that a little more, Peter Gay, in regarding the type of bid process in a little more, for lack of a better term, dumbed down terms.
Thank you.
For this commission, and then I'll have a follow-up, because I understand that. I just want you to explain it a little more layman, please.
Right. Okay, so in the current process, we would go out first with an RFP for the design of the facility, and then once we get that design, then we would actually prepare a bid package, and we will put that out, and then the lowest submittal, that's the, vendor that's responsive, would be awarded to build the actual Fire Station 113. So that's the design, and then bid, and then build process, and that's the one that we selected based on the size of this project.
So I'm just going to give you my feedback on that. There, and Sandy is correct. We did have these very significant issues with what we built. Now, that being said, in the current climate, you have construction companies that have a well-established footprint across this state, building police stations and fire stations. We could be creating a budget increase by our bid choice method. And I say that because hypothetically, if you have Builder X that wants to come in, it's going to be cheaper for Builder X to say, hey, we're going to design it and build it, than let me put in a bid submission for it. And then a builder is going to use a different company Y's build submission to actually build it. So listen, I think it's really an important discussion because we may inherently be increasing the cost of a fire station based on the bid choice method. So I need a little more on that.
And I'd like
because I
to-
don't love what she just said. I love you, just don't love what you just said.
I
But-
would like to suggest that we have Harry address that issue, because it is something, over the last year, we've actually evaluated this very closely, and because of the scale of this project and the intricate needs of the fire department,
Right.
we did move forward with the design, bid, build process. So that decision was made many months ago. So one, we would be very concerned about revisiting the process and having a contractor design the project, because it would set us back many months. And two, our concern is the value engineering that comes forward. Now, because of our experience with Fire Station 50, very candidly, our concern with the majority of the issues with Fire Station 50 were our owner's rep and the relationship between the owner's rep and the contractor. I'm not saying anything I shouldn't be saying.
Yeah, I understand.
but-
We're aware of it.
that's,
We lived it.
Right, we lived it. So if I could have Harry
But let me
address
just,
this one.
and Harry, I want you to address this. I'd like you to address, when you're looking at references and comparables, I'm also curious, because I'm telling you this right now, in the past 2 years, I've toured 10 brand-new fire stations.
Right.
Built by about 5 different companies
Right.
that didn't use this model. So I need you to talk to me that if we're going to accept this model, regardless of the
Okay.
work that's gone into it at this point, why, specifically with this build, I understand that if we're building a bathroom at a park or something like that, I understand the concept of that. This is a little different
Or
because
even
I
the
think
rehab of the fire station, totally.
that this is a
I mean,
little
the
different
fire
because this
police
is,
department.
at least what I believe, there's probably maybe 10 qualified bidders in South Florida that have done this locally, pretty good work. I need a little clarification on
Sure.
that, please.
Your construction delivery method's always a balance between control, time, risk, and cost, right? So if you look at it now, companies that do design builds gonna say they're gonna save you all this money. Same thing with a construction manager at risk. They're inheriting risk, and anytime you inherit risk, you're gonna increase your costs, right? That's what contractors do, because they have to cover that risk. So looking at this, yes, there's a little more time. However, during the design process, we get to fully decide what that fire station is going to look like with the design team and be sure that that's what we want to buy, right? The design bid, the progressive design method and the construction management method, prices are decided before you finish that design. So if any changes happen that are customer related, not the failure of a design of the contractor or the design, then you're going to inherit large change orders because construction's already started.
I understand the model.
So
My question is more specific. Can you tell me about public safety projects that have used this method for design and build? That's my question, because the truth is, if you're telling me, hey, this city has utilized this method successfully,
Right.
I'm supportive of that. If you're telling me we're changing this because we believe it's in the best interest of the city, I could see this in a world, candidly, I could see this in a world where this actually costs us millions of dollars more,
It could.
arguably.
It traditionally costs you less, design bid build. And I'll tell you, here's a couple of things When we say low bidder, we're not going down that road, okay? Nor are we going down the road with the lowest bidder for design. The RFQ process, I'm going to keep it a high level because there is that cone of silence out there, so I'll just go through the process.
Okay.
The request for qualifications went out. We had 13 companies come back, which is public knowledge. 12 were found to be responsive. We evaluated 12. Out of that, 5 were selected for to give further presentations. The criteria, which was established and out there publicly, looks at past performance. Have they designed multiple fire stations before? I think the number was at least 3 in a certain time period. It talks about their capabilities, their time, staff time, so forth, so on, so we can narrow down to make sure we have a good design team. Now, the selection committee said publicly that all the design firms that did apply, all were well qualified. We were down to picking the best of the best, which was a public comment at that meeting. So by doing the two-step process, we narrowed down to a company, a consultant that has the experience, has proven experience, and we can see the results. So then we select that design firm. The construction process, when it will go out to bid, is similar. We will put out a request for qualifications and pre-qualify contractors who have proven experience that can construct the facility that is designed. And we also keep a contract with the design firm to help us oversee all the submittal process and any issues that come up.
Sheila wants to talk. You didn't answer my question. So let's talk about it simple. I'm making a charcuterie
Yeah.
board,
Did I-
right? And I have cheese and meat on it. It's cheaper for me to buy it with cheese and meat on it as opposed to buying the cheese and buying the meat. You're telling me it's cheaper to do it the way I just suggested would be more. I just need to understand.
So it is cheaper to do design bid build. The offset,
Explain that to me because that seems illogical to me.
because the contractor that's doing the construction
What?
has a set plan and an exact design that can do all the takeoffs, material takeoffs, and scheduling. He knows exactly what he's building. When you go the other methods, they're having to guarantee a maximum price before the design is complete.
I
So
get
they
you.
don't have the full picture yet. They're having to make estimates on what that's going to look like.
Okay.
What those costs are. So
I mean, we can further,
Exactly.
there's a cone of silence, so we can further this. I'm just,
But it locks
you
My
threw
in.
me through a loop with that, PDK. That's all.
But, and my suggestion is, you asked a very good question, which of these projects were built using which procurement method? So we can certainly provide you an explanation of the 10 most recent fire
Perfect.
stations and the procurement method used.
And not only
And
that-
any issues, we can solicit any issues that they experienced.
And not only that, examples of whether they are locked in or not to the dollar amount and the effect of change orders or not and limitations of change orders. I mean, it's not to discredit what has already been said here. I respect Harry. I just think that we really need to look with clear and open eyes regarding our past experiences and ensuring that we do not, to the best of our ability, go down that road again. And whatever method
Mayor, I completely agree with you.
whatever method it takes to make it, I've got
So
a
we'll
leg
provide you with that report in the next week or so,
before the,
before the RFP comes.
all right.
Thank you. I guess back to PDK.
All right, thank you. And then closing on that item, the floor replacement at the temporary fire station was successfully completed, so the fire personnel are now back at the temporary site, so. The next item that we wanted to discuss was the police department improvements, and it basically involves a complete renovation of the existing police station to enhance space utilization and operational efficiency. We're also going to be added a new 2-story Cat 5 hurricane building that will be next to the existing fire station. Yes. Future funding request includes $850,000.
Not next to the police station.
Police station.
Police station, I'm
I
sorry,
know,
what
I
did I
called
say?
it-
Fire station.
I called
I'm
it
so
a
sorry.
fire
Police
station
No,
before,
we're
my
not moving
bad.
it beside the fire station.
on
So
the
future funding include $850,000 for the design in fiscal year '26. That's additional funding that's needed for design, with $37 million for construction in '27 and another $1.5 million for future City Hall expansion. And we do anticipate that design services will be solicited and awarded in early 2026, and the design will start sometime in May of 2026 for this project.
Where's the design funding? Is that the 850?
That's the additional. We already have, I believe, about $2 million set aside for design in the current year, yeah. The next item is the redundant fiber optic ring. That's a $1.5 million investment that's planned, and it will establish a redundant fiber optic system that will enhance the resiliency of our fiber network. It ensures uninterrupted communication, and it also helps with equipment failures, fiber cuts, and any cyber threats.
Care to discuss?
Would have helped today.
All right.
Yes,
And
you're here.
This project is slated for fiscal year '26, and we're also actively seeking appropriations for funding for this item. The next item is the Main Street Civic Space and Parking Garage. Planning is well underway for this area, and it includes the Village Green Park, Lakeside Plaza, and a new parking garage.
Just a point of clarification, at the meeting related to the CDD, we talked about a criteria package for the garage and just more formal cost estimating for the park. As we work through it, we decided that it makes more sense for us to do a design package that incorporates the parking garage together with the park so that the views are correct and then that it becomes a holistic package. So the RFQ for designers will include that whole package.
All right. And we expect that to come before the commission sometime in late summer of this year, with an anticipated 12 to 18 months completion timeframe to get that done. We've also been collaborating with the development team to explore various funding options for construction, including the possibility of financing these projects through the CDD, with the city entering into an interlocal agreement for repayment. The next item is the Recreation Complex building improvements. The design for this was already completed, and we have a total estimate of $2 million for construction, and it includes a complete removal of all the textured wall coverings, the addition of a new sound system, new LED lighting, plumbing fixtures, flooring, and modernization of the reception lobby. And that is slated for fiscal year '26 to cover the construction costs of that project. And the last item on this slide is the Government Center courtyard and parking lot renovations. The RFP for the design for this project is scheduled to go to the commission in April. The design was funded in fiscal year '25, and construction of $1 million is slated for fiscal year '26.
And just to refresh your memory, what that does is it adds some additional parking out in the front courtyard area, but the more important components of it is that it creates the City Hall courtyard as an event venue so that we're maximizing the use of the space for concerts. It provides for an accessible bathroom, just an easily accessible bathroom through City Hall so that we can use the facility for events on the weekends. It also provides for the visibility of the police department, which right now, I love the butterflies, but the butterfly garden is overgrown, and the need to create seat walls in areas that will become part of an event venue are the plan for that area.
Is there going to be an increased amount of handicap parking?
So the handicap parking is a percentage, so there would definitely be increased handicap parking. If you think that we need to go beyond what would be code required, we can certainly consider that.
I mean, if Jackie wants to jump in, but I do agree with increasing handicap parking. We have Winmore, a lot of residents come. I've heard numerous complaints that the commissioners have better parking than okay, they are still students, why not? Than people from Winmore. So, I mean, for me, I don't know, I can't speak on behalf of the commission, but I'm okay, giving up some of that space for me, for handicap. I don't know how everybody else feels, but there needs to be more accommodations for those people, because we have a high clientele of those people.
Sheila space, it's a good one.
Yeah, we start there.
Actually,
I just want to move right over by the EV parking.
I think it's where they're located is more important than the amount.
Okay, so we'll take note of that and make sure we look at that.
Okay.
I agree with my colleague's sentiment that we probably do need a little bit more handicap parking there that maybe goes above and beyond code. I apologize, I'm also. I agree with my colleagues that we should have a little more handicap parking that goes above and beyond code, especially based on some of the
Will do.
salient issues that come before our commission.
Does this include any further EV stalls?
We are looking, I know Harry is looking to locate additional EV chargers. Our expectation, our plan was when dispatch moves out of the EOC building, we'd have an opportunity to do more EV parking.
Okay.
We do find that the EV spaces here are used all the time.
Even on the weekends?
Yes, all the time. So we're looking at that.
Yeah,
Yep.
totally.
Okay, all right. And just wanted to let you know that we continue to actively pursue grant opportunities for several of these capital projects listed in the 10-year plan. And as we move forward, we'll continue to research and evaluate any potential grants to help offset some of these costs for these projects.
I think we shouldn't hold our breath about grants. Reliance.
We are working, our CIP, we will have identified grant strategies for each of our CIPs. That's sort of a new process that we're implementing that will at least identify, we won't be pursuing grants that aren't part of our CIP. We're going to focus on the grants that are projects that we need to get done.
Dedicated, yeah.
Perfect. So this slide shows a summary of the Parks and Rec Master Plan and the improvements that are coming forward by park. You can see we have a total of $42.4 million for this 10-year master plan. It just shows a high-level overview, and currently we're in the early stages of improvements at Donaldson and Sunshine Drive Parks, along with Phase 1 for Lakeside and Oak Trails Park expansions. So we do remain committed to investing in the parks and recreation projects with future funding dependent on other competing priorities and the availability of financial resources.
If I could just ask for a clarification, the Oak Trails Park numbers that you show, does that include grant funding or does it not include grant funding in terms of the cost? So just for the purpose of clarification.
I believe that's the total cost.
Can you go back to the last slide? Veronica's got the clicker.
Yep.
I don't know who had it. I'm secretly holding it under your paper. Yes, I have it. So my question is, when you look at the Oak Trails Park expansion, which is a tick under $3 million, does that include or not include about the $1 million we're getting in grant funding?
Yes, it does include that grant funding.
So that should be 4.9 or whatever the number is.
No, so, okay, so that's the total, that's the total cost of the project, and then the grant funding would be used to offset that amount.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
We do anticipate adding funding to provide for lighting in the park.
Is that for lighting dawn to dusk or after dawn to dusk?
So there would be emergency lighting provided at the meeting facility that would be on all night, but to light the facility so that the hours could be extended is what we're talking about.
Past dusk?
Past dusk, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were asking.
All right, so this next item is the Main Street project, which continues to be a priority for us. We're in the early stages of the project, and we continue to collaborate with the developer to ensure steady progress. The city does own several parcels within the Main Street area that are currently part of a land swap agreement that will come before the commission at a future time. In fiscal year 25, we had set aside approximately $2.7 million for the infrastructure improvements relating to the city-owned parcels. And then we also have Village Green and Lakeside Plaza, as well as the parking garage that we are including in the Main Street development that we have to fund over the next several years. And as
I know the mayor gets special privilege, but she has the PowerPoint in front of her. Is there a copy? Is there additional copies for us instead of having to look at the screen? I'm envious of what she has.
I actually had to order one.
I don't have one.
Wait.
Maureen will make
No,
some.
that's.
Okay, thank you.
okay.
I don't have one either. I don't have one either, I noticed that too. So.
I was like, oh my God, how lucky is she?
I asked for it this afternoon before my agenda review.
All right, so moving forward, we'll make copies for everyone.
Okay.
Okay, thank,
The digital version so we can print or save paper.
Yeah.
okay.
Mayor doesn't like to save paper.
Well, typically, if I have to print, I print at home, but my printer wasn't working because Comcast was down. Imagine that.
But the exciting thing you'll see on this slide is Block 13.
I know.
So,
To be
Block-
discussed.
Block 13 is basically slated for future development, and it will be included with an economic development strategy process that we will discuss in more detail shortly. All right, so at the Main Street Project Workshop on February 13th, we reached a consensus on several key items necessary to advance the Main Street project. This slide provides just a recap of those items, with the final consideration for the Community Development District scheduled for the April 10th Commission meeting, so that will be coming before you on April 10th. And we continue to collaborate with the developer to plan for several other key components, which are included in items 3 through 7. And Sheila already talked about preparing the RFP packet for the design for Village Green and the parking garage. So we remain focused on keeping this project moving forward while ensuring thoughtful planning and strategic partnerships with the developer.
And now,
All right, so as Coconut Creek nears build-out, our focus is on maintaining the city's economic vitality and sustainability by identifying development and redevelopment opportunities while carefully evaluating their impacts on the local economy, municipal services, and overall fiscal health of the city. To support this effort, we are very excited to bring to you in the next few weeks an RFP that is going to go out to engage potential vendors or a team of vendors to develop a comprehensive economic development strategy for the city of Coconut Creek. So basically, that RFP will include an economic redevelopment strategy that will focus on providing an in-depth evaluation of select privately owned properties to assess their redevelopment potential.
and just on that, you know, we started by identifying those properties we thought were economically challenged and warranted redevelopment, such as Coconut Creek Plaza and some of those other Lions Plaza. And then we pulled back and felt like we would get better feedback if we allowed the consultant team to give us suggestions on which parcels were the most appropriate for timely for redevelopment.
So when you mean consultant team, it's who you wish to engage to?
Yes. So the scope includes not only our owned property, but an evaluation of areas they see as prime for redevelopment and strategies for redeveloping those properties.
That's great.
All right. So as Sheila mentioned, a component will be to focus on our city-owned properties within the Main Street area. That's highlighted on this map. It's a little hard to see, but those are the
If I could
areas
just
in
inquire
orange.
real quick, Madam Rose, the intent of the RFP for a consultant for economic development, are we looking to outsource this?
We're looking to bring in a consultant to develop the master plan, and then we would either outsource the implementation or we would implement it in-house.
I know this isn't
the
not
tool.
necessarily maybe the right time, but you brought it up. You know, my suggestion is I plan to be extraordinarily limited in any suggestions for expenditures based on some of the big expenditures we have. So I don't believe this is the time for pet projects. But I do believe something that I've talked to you about privately is having an in-house economic development coordinator, whether it's somebody that's going to coordinate with the development team through this RFP. But I believe the time is ripe. The time is now to have somebody. I know from various league meetings that there's, you know, companies that focus in South Florida, nationwide that do it. But I do believe there needs to be a staff conduit for it. So
Yes.
the only thing I was going to be suggesting for this budget cycle in terms of staffing was tasking whether a current employee or a new employee with at least either that coordination effort for an outside consultant or company, but somebody in-house that focuses on this. Because candidly, when you became city manager, we lost our economic development coordinator.
And I think,
And Scott is really good.
right,
And I don't want him to have that title. So, and Justin,
We agree.
Whoever it is should work for Justin, but we need somebody in-house that can focus on this, because I know Commissioner Wassman has been heavily focused on the Coconut Creek Shopping Center. I know the Hillsborough Marketplace by me, while they are full, I've turned into an economic development consultant meeting with Basmanian
We
and
agree.
Investments Limited. So I do believe that for this budget cycle is something important to add a position. And again, I don't believe it's like a pet project of mine. I just do believe it's in the best interest of the economic development of the city.
no, I think staff agrees. We do think the master plan is important to get the corporate feedback.
And I understand that, but you're hiring a consultant, but the consideration should be made before that. While it's a budget cycle issue that's not going to take effect until 2026.
Right.
That should work hand in hand. It'd be useless if we hire a consultant to come up with a plan if there's not an idea of some staff conduit of whoever it is going to take point on that to run it for the purpose of the city. So we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. We're going to hire a consultant to do an economic development plan, but we want to have somebody, not you, I mean, candidly, you've done it for 20 years here. We need somebody.
To run with.
Yes,
We
100%.
agree.
It would be double dipping and ending up with the same result.
Correct.
So,
Okay. And then the last component that we wanted to tie in with this was just a long-term financial analysis of what the next several years will look like with this development and redevelopment plan.
absolutely. So that will include all plazas across the city, including Township Plaza, all of them, just to remain unnamed and inclusive of throughout the city.
Right, so if we move forward with the RFP, then we'd have someone make that determination on what the focus should be and what plazas should be included.
Or if it's a permanent position, either way.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's get clarity. My thinking is that we would move forward with the RFP, we'll begin the process, we'll put in a program modification to add the economic development professional that will be the implementation conduit. Right now, I think, between Scott and I and Peter Gay, we have a pretty good handle on the big picture items that need to be considered, and I would hate to wait to start the plan.
I don't want to cut you off, but the reality is if you're putting out an RFP for city-owned property to do economic development, there's a bigger need. I do believe there's a bigger need. So if you're hiring a consultant, you go, Veronica, humor me, go back to the slide that deals with the economic development coordinator. Yeah, that one. So if we're going to hire a consultant that's going to do an analysis of this, there's a higher focus for that. So if you're looking for bang for your buck, right?
Right.
There needs to be some consideration of maybe being a little more expansive than that in terms of other potential businesses. Like, I'll give you an example, Cheesesteak Factory. That's Margate, wrong one.
That's Spanky's.
Cheesecake, it is Spanky's, very good. But, Cheesecake Factory came in, I mean, I may be privy to some of the deal they have, but they brought in a national vendor to revitalize the promenade.
Right.
There's other spaces there that a government coordinator could help with.
I agree.
So, but I don't want to be limited in the fact that we're going to approve a consultant for economic development in a limited capacity where we may be able to add a couple other items to that, the RFP,
Okay.
the RFQ, that could benefit the city for a much more nominal price. That's all.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So is it selected privately owned properties, or is it inclusive of privately owned?
I just think it needs to be a little broader
Yes,
in the
absolutely.
request, because it shouldn't be, this should be the focus. This is 80%, but 20% of what else should be done should be considering some at least targeted, and here's how I'll suggest
Right,
it, targeted areas. So if this is the request of saying, hey, look at these, and then, you know what, give us our best areas of opportunity in parcels that are square footage of X and above, or whatever the metric is you want to use, which will encompass 5 or 6 shopping centers, right? But
Right.
at least gives an analysis that we can kind of two-for it, that'll at least give us a better idea of not just this, of saying, hey, give us some targeted areas of economic development in other places of the city, but give it as a metric.
And that is,
Right.
very candidly, that is what is in the scope, is
Okay.
the privately owned as well as the publicly owned properties. But what I'm hearing you say, and I think it's well-timed, is that we also need to deal with our existing business culture.
Correct.
It's doing okay.
We have to.
And we do need an economic development
there's
person to be
So
doing
there's,
that.
I'll call it, there's
So there's
I
3
think
prongs.
there's 6 large shopping centers in the city.
Right.
That I think at least should be considered in this.
Yes.
And I say that, we're looking at the Regency Lake Shopping Center, Hillsborough Marketplace, Coconut Creek Parkway,
Lions.
Winston Park, Lions Road. So there's
Yeah.
probably 6, including the promenade. So that's my only thing, that we could probably expand that slightly for a little bit more money from whoever's bidding on it, that we get at least a little more data that can help staff.
I actually think
Good
it's
clarity.
imperative that we do include these other shopping centers with the development of Main Street. And we have to show that our business owners, that we do care about them as well.
Right.
And that we're looking to expand business for every one of our.
And I
bit
apologize
small
if I was
businesses.
unclear. The way the scope is written is that it does provide for the existing plaza, an overview and strategies for existing plazas, as well as the publicly owned. We just didn't make the list of each plaza that they felt that they needed to study.
I would suggest utilizing a list in that capacity.
Okay.
And again, I don't want to micromanage a metric for it, but I think that there's some of our higher square footage shopping centers, we'll call it. I'm not talking a shopping center with 3 businesses in it, because I think we're going, and that's, saying anything bad about that, but I think if we're trying to keep it massive high level, we'll get there. But I just want to make sure that's included.
I'm going to be honest, I need some education get me from A to Z on what was just said in terms of the economic development of the other plazas. So if we're getting yeah, you understand what I'm saying.
Okay, so and it's kind of funny, it's interesting, because we had this whole conversation about put the list in, take the list out. So it's kind of funny, we're coming full circle, because we were looking at individual plazas, and I'll take, for instance, the plaza that's at Hillsborough and Johnson Road. There's the plazas flanking both corners. The plaza on the north end, we've seen some great opportunities for redevelopment of that plaza. I'm sorry, 441. What did I say?
Hillsborough.
441 and Johnson. That plaza, which has the adjacent El Rancho Mobile Home Park, might be a great opportunity for redevelopment. Would have been great with the Whole Foods. So there are great opportunities like that. Lions Plaza. But to decide which one is the appropriate focus or the most timely focus in the next 8 to 10 years, is the status of their leases, the status of their ownership. What are the complications that make redevelopment difficult or, possible?
And the vacant
those are the reasons
spaces.
why we actually took it. Okay, so when we're developing an economic development strategy, we're looking at potential alternative uses, potential redevelopment, but we're also looking at whether there's incentives that we should be offering, whether we should be working with.
And then that information is shared with the property owners?
Shared with the property owners. Even interesting, I just had a phone conversation with a realtor I know that does commercial real estate broker, and just said, hey, Deanie's Hideaway, nobody's paying any attention to it. We've got the demo permit. It went through probate. What a great location. Please look at it. So somebody, when you talk about an economic development person, that's the role.
Okay.
That we've been doing.
Basically, so tying it into the Main Street and then providing guidance on, or offering assistance, or not assistance, but advice
Main Street
or
is
insight
right. Main
into
Street's
what different
unique.
places could do. Okay.
Unique because we own property in that area, but the private redevelopment is as critical or more critical over the next several years. We know our property will be developed.
Just like to give you, may I just give you an interesting hypothetical, like Mr. Schmier with the Main Street team, and I'm going to cite him. His specialty is finding these national brands to come to obviously new development, but we got to find that person that's talking about old development that's saying, hey, I got a national brand that may not be the Chipotle, but it's a national brand of this, that we can say, we're going to make that partnership happen with incentivization through city programs, rebates, things like that we can incentivize bringing in a new business, whether it's a bank or a restaurant or some national chain. We've never had that, and a lot of cities are behind. I think we'd be ahead of the game getting on top of this, because a lot of cities don't do that with their private partners. And a lot of times it's staff-led, and you've done that.
I mean, it's Sprouts. We've been trying to get Sprouts.
Yeah.
We tried to get Sprouts at the Hillsborough Marketplace for 10 years, but at least we got them to town.
Well, we don't have a CRA, so we're formulating our own product that fits us. And it also looks at
Or you could say
vacancies, right?
And-
The number
and-
of vacancies at each one of these
Brown
plazas,
community
because that has to be a deterrent for anyone wanting to go in there with the number of vacant spaces.
Yes, and one of the reasons why it's so important that we compile this and work it over several years is it allows us to make decisions about, for instance, Block 13.
Yeah.
Do we want to invest in more public recreation? What do we have will we generate enough money for us to spend more money doing more public recreation, or do we need the tax base? Those are the kind of questions that we have to answer.
just to share something with the commission that hasn't happened yet. There's a national vendor, and Scott's been helpful with this, a national vendor that wants to come into Lions Tech Park right now and build an indoor aquatic center. Like, these are these concepts that an economic development coordinator will focus and bring into these unique business models that don't exist anywhere here, and we could be the first in Coconut Creek.
And our
Imagine an
resident-
indoor aquatic center.
And our residents have been asking for that, been asking for an aquatic center for years.
Right.
So,
We got one on the hook.
Yeah, swim lessons. So that's pretty exciting.
It is exciting.
All right.
Get somebody brand new. Okay.
All right, so before we get into additional inputs, this slide basically lists the capital projects that were discussed last year and that are still active. And I know it's a little bit small, so hopefully everyone got their handouts they could use also. So just wanted to make sure that, we keep in mind that we're in the midst of the budget process still, and the departments are still evaluating needs and priorities. So anything that we discuss today is not all-inclusive or final. Some of the active projects include the construction of the Recreation Complex building renovation and the Government Center courtyard, which we talked about earlier. We also have on here Lakeside Park Phase 2. It comes at an estimated cost of $11.9 million, and we have that slated for fiscal year '29 at this time. Last year when we met, we had discussed moving it to fiscal year '26 for Phase 2. For Oak Trails Park Phase 2, last year we talked about deferring it, and we included it in the adopted budget for fiscal year '33. But because we have been delaying some of the other Parks and Recreation master plan items due to funding availability, we are recommending to push this back another 2 years to fiscal year '35. And the total estimated cost of this is $3.6 million. All right, for South Creek neighborhood improvements, design is slated for fiscal year '26 with construction in fiscal year '28. It's fully funded by surtax dollars, and it comes with a total estimated cost of $15.9 million. There's a typo on the slide. I had put 11.6 for construction, but it really is 14.3, so I apologize for that.
And we're very fortunate. That's a surtax-funded project, and I expect that very, very shortly I will bring to you an interlocal agreement with the City of Margate where they have agreed to expedite their utility construction so that they will finish their work, and then we will come do the resurfacing. It saves them money, it saves us money, and it gets the project, it's still a ways off, but it certainly looks like better government coordination.
Are these,
It's in the city manager's office now, so.
That's wonderful.
and these commencement dates are subject to Margate finishing their project?
So
We're not just deferring them.
the intent is to compel Margate to finish through an agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a poor word choice. I think it's a partnership.
I agree with
And I
you.
think if you're going to do that, I think it'd be savvy that we present it accordingly and the cost-saving measures of the city of Margate to
Yes.
make sure their commission supports it.
Good point. And the city manager's been very open to the idea because it does require that they move their priorities to this area, but it is a significant cost savings for them.
Good. I'm sure they'll understand that.
All right, perfect. The next item is the Vincamolder Utilities Improvement. So the design was completed, and we have construction estimated at $4.4 million. And for this project to move forward, it would need to be funded via a special assessment that will be repaid by the property owners in that area over time. So it's tentatively scheduled right now for fiscal year '26, but likely it will be pushed back to a future year pending confirmation of a special assessment to fund those improvements.
And based on the public meetings, there isn't a taste for us to go forward with this at this time, so it will be sitting on the shelf.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
All right. And then the next item is the commission chambers renovations. It's in need of some renovation to meet the daily operational needs. It's estimated at a cost of $2.8 million, inclusive of design and construction, and it's tentatively scheduled for funding for construction in fiscal year '27.
I don't know if, I'm a little uncomfortable with the whole chamber renovations. I don't know what 2.5 million gets us. I do have an issue with that. We're here, air conditioning's working, microphones are working, sound system's working. There was a time maybe I would have thought differently, but sitting here looking at a 2.5 million price tag, I think that money could be spent somewhere else. It could help to save residents. I don't know, maybe other people have something to say, but I want to know what it gets. What do we get for the 2.5?
I support Commissioner Wasserman.
I do as well.
This money should be kicked
Let's take
Right.
to either the fire or the police station. Period,
Right.
end of story.
Yeah, we're fine.
We love that.
I do want to,
I don't know, I mean, we should hear from everybody, but I think we'd all be in
Can
consensus.
I
on this.
speak
I
up
do.
real quick? As somebody who's been dealing with technology, we're one misstep from not having any of this working. The equipment in here is 16 years old. It's dated. If we don't start doing something here, we're going to come up to a commission meeting. We're not going to have video. We're not going to have a sound system. It's more than just making it look pretty. We need to at least put a chunk of money in here for our technology pieces, because we are literally, if you go get a tour from any IT guy, that back room, we are literally one dust mite away from this thing collapsing. And you don't take my word for it, we have Eric's here, we have our IT guys here. You can ask them about the technology in this building. It needs help. And maybe not 2.8 million, but at least can we edge out something for the technology piece of this?
So
I agree.
So might I suggest when we, as part of our staff evaluation, we have been looking at the IT. We were postponing the IT improvements until we did the rehab, but if the architectural changes aren't a priority,
No.
we can certainly scale back and come up with a plan to fix the technology.
No.
Commissioner Brody brings up a good point. I mean, there are, obviously, we do need to bring up to the 21st century, 100%. But for seating, for carpet, for this, I mean, we're here, we're doing great. But yes, if you can get a price tag on
Okay.
what the tech, like he was saying, I'm all for that.
I think also it's important to parsec out our chambers, right? So I know traditionally, it was not only the chamber renovation, it was office renovation. It's been looked at as a sole project.
Correct.
And I know traditionally, when you bid this, I know that number encompasses offices as well.
We don't
So-
need that.
Agreed. So I think that there may be a way to parsec out upgrades here. And I know from a previous city manager, it wasn't under you, Madam Rose, there was, the reason we couldn't stream meetings was just technology. But alas, look what happened. So I say
Here,
that
it happened.
miraculously.
We lived to see it.
So I say that from a capacity of, I think that there's a healthy medium that we should meet.
Absolutely.
Good.
Okay, perfect. So then we'll go into some new items that we have, staff is either considering or requests that we've gotten from the commission along the way over the past year. So the first of this is Lakewood East parking enhancement. So we're currently evaluating the need for these parking enhancements. And although we're in the early stages, we anticipate it's going to cost anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000. And basically, this project would take the recommendations from the parking study, once that's finalized, and then roll that into a plan for implementation so that we can address the issues with parking and roadway blockage and so forth in that area.
And the expectation is we would roll that together with the resurfacing project.
All right. All right, the next one is our advanced metering infrastructure that we mentioned earlier. So staff has started the process of transitioning.
Yeah.
I know, probably longer.
And more.
So we started the process for transitioning from a touch read system to an advanced automatic meter reading infrastructure. So I did want to say thank you to Veronica. She was played a critical role in getting us there through that process. So we have issued the bids for the actual implementation of the infrastructure, and based on the pricing received, we will need some additional funding to the tune of approximately $1.4 million. Now, this is funded through the water and wastewater rates, but this project is essential because it will allow the ability to enhance control and optimize our water distribution networks, and will provide for more timely information for our customers on potential leaks and water usage. And we worked with a consultant to calculate a payback period for us, and we're looking at a payback period for about 4.5 years. So it's something we would invest in, but then we would be able to reap some efficiencies with this new system.
I support this, we need to do this now. One of the biggest complaints on anyone who's on social media is the disconnect of when there's an issue to when residents become aware. Obviously, Sandy, I've served with all of you, but this has been something we've been looking at for 12 years.
Yes,
I
definitely.
think we're there, and I support adding this not as a staff consideration, but as a capital improvement project.
And not only that, but it will make it accurate. So there will really be no controversy, and after the fact, once you hear a complaint, it will be a very accurate reading,
Right, that is correct.
smart reading.
Yeah. So we're also pursuing state appropriations of about $800,000 to assist with this project, so hopefully we'll be successful, but we're continuing to monitor it. And we're also in the negotiation phase right now, and the commission can expect to see this item actually come before you for approval sometime in May. Since this new metering system does allow for more accurate reading of water usage, as we move forward, we're going to continue to monitor our water rates and evaluate the need for any rate adjustments, one, to cover, the implementation of this system, as well as any PFAS requirements, which we'll kind of discuss in more details a little later in this presentation, to make sure that we minimize the effects on our residents moving forward. So. We've also received some capital requests before this meeting, including the additional outdoor lighting for Oak Trails Park, which Sheila mentioned earlier, which we were going to include on that list for ranking. And we have also received a preliminary request to consider adding some landscaping along the Winmore Wall, which is estimated at about $525,000.
And I'd like to address that if I can. I was surprised to see it on the slide. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. And I can tell you why it came from me, just as a comment. It was actually a curious comment because the TCMA board was very much wondering why they had the 3-layer requirement along the sidewalks and the median, the sidewalks and the berms along Lyons Road, and were being held true to it, and why there wasn't same type of landscaping, or at least any landscaping along the Winmore Wall along Lyons. And I asked the same thing after the fact, and only to find out that the city owns and maintains that right away. I did not know that. And so that if there was any landscaping to be there, it would be on the backs of us as the city owners. So I didn't pursue it. I didn't actually ask for it to go forward. I made the comment because it was an education to me. I wasn't aware that we owned that and maintained it. I did wonder why our workers were often working on the irrigation, but nonetheless. So is that the point where we can go ahead? I think I'll go ahead and kick off some of the things that I had in mind for and none of them are expenditures. Much of it's already included in the current budget. It's just diverting some for different purposes.
I think we have a few more.
I just wanted to go ahead if I could.
Okay.
And the first one is that I think we definitely need to have a financial place marker here for if our process to oppose the landfill with the county goes past the Rule 164. I mean, we've already made a commitment as a board to go further if it's needed, and I just asked if we could put financial place marker dollar amount in our budget so that it's there should we need it, when we need it. And given that Mr. DeMayo, I think, had said in one previous suit that there was budgeted $2 million, I'm going to ask if we can do the same. I know we've just cut back that particular dollar item on something else, and we really need to ensure that the residents know that we are committed, should we need to be, going forward.
So I know Terrell has reserve funding, and there's other avenues for her to pursue outside litigation that traditionally comes in always under budget. Kathy, am I correct with that?
Traditionally, her outside budget, traditionally, she does always come under budget significantly on outside counsel, but it would not cover the cost.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think $2 million is aggressive, Sandy, but the reality is when this commission made a decision to litigate, you're in for a penny and for a pound.
Exactly, but I just think we need to put the money aside and ensure that should we need it, it's already there, and it's not. It's a place marker. It's not talking about the strategy of going forward. But I did have this discussion with Terrell, and that wouldn't just necessarily be for billable hours, as you well know. It's much other things that are involved. I just feel that it's important for transparency that we put a dollar item in.
Well, I would suggest $1 million, because I think that there's some case studies from other cities that Mr. DeMeo has worked with.
That what they
Bartow
actually
and-
used.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I would suggest, I think that's a little high and a little aggressive, so I think $1 million would be appropriate. And I only say that because Mr. DeMeo's history with 2 other municipalities that I've looked into have been given around that amount, but that amount was from, I think, 2 to 3 years of litigation. So while I support a place marker in it, it's hard with cost of litigation. And obviously Kathy, chime in, and I trust, obviously, your department's
Can I
judgment.
chime in
Help
too?
us budget our.
I think we split the difference there. I think we both have good ideas what we want to do. We do want to keep a cap on this. I believe that we put in, we should do it, but we should certainly have a cap. I think if we split the difference, the 1.5 million as a cap, I think that satisfies everybody's feel on this.
Just to have something there, and
just
the
just
budget,
at the end.
the budgeted amount was not
May I
used.
ask, is this strictly for the turnpike, for the landfill, or will this include turnpike?
So what we're talking about is budgeting specifically associated with the landfill, but it would not just be legal fees, it would be experts. And recognize any time along the way, if we see progress, if we see the county offering a settlement, we can pull the plug. This is
Absolutely.
for the purposes of having a number in so that we balance the budget.
Okay.
And it is clearly a worst-case scenario. We understand that the other examples did not come in that high, and we would hope that that does not come anywhere near that. However, some of those cases did occur some time ago, and looking at inflation and all of those other additional costs, most of that budget would be for, not for actual hourly fees in terms of litigation, but expert research and testimony and
So just as clarification, I support it, whatever the number is, it's fine with me, but the reality is, when you look at the Bartow case, which is almost exactly similar to our case, that was 3.5 years. So that was 3.5 years of litigation that tuned up to about 1.2, correct? And again,
That's what he
that's my
said.
understanding.
so that was 3.5 years. So if you parsec that out, I mean, you're talking 300 a year. So I'm all for it, whatever you choose the number to be. I don't want to be overly aggressive, because what's going to happen is, after we have the strategic planning, there's going to be an article. And the article's going to say, City of Coconut Creek's committed to spending $1.5 million. I mean, there's going to be backlash to that, as opposed to saying, committing a guaranteed amount per fiscal cycle over the next 3 years. So
But it also shows our commitment.
If we went with the $1 million, we can always amend as we're moving forward.
Certainly.
So
I'd support that.
I would support that.
I'd support that, Vice Mayor Riley. Thank you. Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Perfect, no problem.
Ready?
Ready? Okay, all right. So we move on to the next slide. So these are the non-capital requests that we've received. The first one on the list is just things that have carried over from fiscal year '25 or new items for '26. So the first one is microtransit. It's estimated to cost anywhere from $700,000 to upwards of $2 million, depending on the options we select. And this program is basically on hold until we're able to secure a recurring funding source via the surtax funding for this.
So what we've been doing is we've been working with the county to amend the interlocal agreement to make it a fundable activity. It is taking a long time, and the county is working on their plan for the entire county. It's a long-term push, but we think ultimately that's the way to go.
Sounds good.
All right, the next item is the composting program. We have successfully implemented a pilot program, and based on the success of this program, we received a request to expand the pilot program to include more residents, as well as evaluate the possibility of extending the services to a limited number of commercial businesses.
And
Yeah.
a multifamily pilot.
Right.
If we could, we did have some interest
Right.
in pilot for multifamilies.
So we
Thank
did,
you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm
go-
sorry, dear. Because I was going to say that I found it very interesting, especially, like you say, multifamily with the communities, and not necessarily the organic food waste, even just clippings and trimmings and trees and leaves. We have tons of it in Winmore, and I'm sure Township and all the other neighboring communities. If they initiate this program, they will save on pickup, and that would pay for the composting. And also, they also have a program where you could get that back for when you're doing landscaping. right?
You can
And
reuse it.
Yeah.
You can
And
reuse
it's
it. Yep.
It's a cycle. It
It
would
is.
be.
We just highlighted the Solid
Yeah.
Waste Authority. North Broward
Yeah.
Preparatory has an agreement
Yeah.
right now that all the schools, but for the lower school, the middle school and the high school, have literally are dedicating all their food waste and their trees, landscaping and
Yeah.
everything, and they're bringing back soil and mulch.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I fully support this, and I want to give you a little credence here. We get picked on every single Solid Waste Authority meeting by some vendor saying City of Coconut Creek doesn't recycle. Well, there's a
Did you
carve-
say doesn't or does?
Correct. So Harry hears it, Mike hears it every single meeting, and the carve-out is we don't curbside recycle.
No.
We actually have extraordinarily recycling numbers for drop-off, but they pick on us because we're one of only two cities that actually do this. So it bothers me, but I do believe we need to be a leader in composting. A huge chunk of the Solid Waste Authority master plan will be composting. Every single vendor that is coming forward is mandated to have a composting element, and the county now has been tasked with seeing on some of their wetland property at the west landfill site to see if they have the ability of using some of those potential non-usable acres to do composting. So I'm a huge supporter of this, and here's my suggestion, again, up to all of you, is we need to focus on commercial. I've talked to about about five at this point, some of our big restaurants that have committed to using it, and the partnership is, and Jackie's actually right, she's leaving, but she's right. When you talk
waste.
to Dustin, you got to have a lot of yard waste,
Right.
like
balance it.
leaves, because you're essentially sandwiching that in with your food waste, and it's coming right back into the community. So I'm a big believer in this program, and I think we need to inject it specifically for our commercial businesses.
I did want to put a caveat that the single-family or the multifamily would be for them to drop off rather than to have, curbside pickup.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think.
Because there are a lot of people that, there's a 50-member cap on the composting, and they want to know, can I use your code? I'd like to participate, so.
I would agree. I support that. I don't know if the rest of the commission does.
Right, so we
Is
could
there
put
a
it.
consensus?
Well, minus Jackie, but I think she gave it.
Well,
before she left.
absolutely. In fact, the whole city, we brought this up during the presentation with the county.
Right.
That's already in place in a grand scale where I grew up. So it's possible to do this and it worked. And within 10 years, they were actually giving out 5-gallon buckets of compost free to every resident in Chula Vista. It's about 225,000 people. So it's possible to do it. I'm in total support for this. I think we need to get it rolling. I'm totally on board.
And Deerfield has wildly expanded their composting program with huge success. And I don't believe, I'm just curious, Sheila, we have a vendor conducting a pilot program. Do we have to take that out, or can we utilize that same vendor in an additional pilot program?
I don't know. I think we anticipated using the same vendor,
Yeah.
but we'll confirm that.
Yeah, because I think, the pilot footprint, I think, is appropriate. That's all.
Can I, along the same vein of the comments that you're receiving or feedback that you're receiving at these SWA Executive Committee meetings, do they know the results of just a few hundred of or do they care?
Have you ever known me to not open my mouth?
Well, very few times. I have seen it, and I say since I've known you maybe a couple of times, but.
You've known me a long time. so-
Yeah, I
so
mean, it's sad because their recycled curbside is not recycled.
So
And we have the data to prove that ours
The
does.
issue was, this was a salient point used against Coconut Creek when I was speaking about, obviously, the landfill.
Yeah,
We've educated our colleagues. I will tell you, there's some, this isn't the forum to do it, but for example, there's a vendor that's really significant reducing textile. Textiles are 8% of our waste stream right now. There's vendors at Plantation is really ahead of the game on a lot of these things, but I'll talk about that at a formal commission meeting. So the answer, Mayor, is I have very loudly educated on our recycling rates at the Solid Waste Authority.
well, I think you did get some converts because I've heard from them. So, anyway, go ahead.
All right, perfect. So we'll work on preparing the program modifications for multifamily commercial and then looking at the drop-off for composting.
Okay.
Also, I just wanted to note that as part of our agreement with the Public Services, we do get approximately $45,000 per year, which we have primarily used for food waste diversion pilot program, glass recycling, and educational materials to help offset some of the city costs.
So we do use the 45,000?
Correct.
Okay. I just wasn't sure how we use it.
Okay.
Okay. Is that to pay for the pickup for the glass recycling?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is probably the right, again, I didn't want to do, I planned on doing this on Thursday, but this is the right point for it with increased drop-off locations. Other cities have you know those obnoxious bins that just get dropped places? One's in front of Lions Creek right now that says, drop your clothes here, that becomes a trash receptacle. Certain cities have ordinances preventing that.
We do.
I know we do. There's modifications to that ordinance that could be made that allows the right vendor the space to utilize it, and I would suggest that we include a textile drop-off at our current drop-off locations.
Both of them?
Correct. And it does require a modification to our ordinance, and Plantation, just to be suggestive, Plantation, I believe Southwest Ranches are doing that right now with a modification of the ordinance, because it became the soup du jour. All these random companies were just dropping these boxes, which is, I mean, I remember passing the ordinance.
Right.
But we need to modify that to be in compliance with our own recycling centers with those boxes.
Okay.
But textile, and again, I don't want to hammer the point, it was shocking the amount of textiles that are in our waste stream. 8% of the residential waste stream.
Do they have did Plantation talk about any of the contamination, or it's strictly is what's supposed to be in there?
There's a vendor I'll be connecting with, Madam Rose and staff, that I'll make sure it trickles down to you
Okay, thanks.
for educational purposes.
Yes.
All right, perfect. The next item we have is just for staff consideration, additional maintenance costs for, once we complete some of these major capital projects, then we have to maintain them moving forward. So we're looking at an additional $250,000 for fiscal year '26. Additionally, we have seen some large increases in our landscaping contract prices, so we have to factor that in for the budget moving forward also. The next set of items are the items for commission requests that we have received so far, which includes another recycling drop-off location. So we're currently evaluating all the pros and cons of different options, including finding the potential location, which is a little challenging right now, but we will continue to research and follow up with the commission with a recommendation once we have more information on this. The next item is priority access for residents for the rides at the Butterfly Festival. So based on the preliminary attendance numbers we received, we had over 16,000 attendees at the last Butterfly Festival, of which 30% were residents. So this just confirms that we really need to evaluate and look at options to prioritize our residents for those rides moving forward. So we're going to focus on that, evaluate, and come back with the commission for a recommendation.
Yeah, so the $60,000 that was shown here was just a placeholder. We will study it. It's surprising to see the non-resident participation has gone from, in 2022, 33% now to over 70%.
And we cut down on advertising this year. So this year, we didn't actually advertise in mainstream media. Okay.
Well, and there was over 16,000 people attending, so it's very popular.
I feel like 60,000 is a lot. I don't know what.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know what goes into
placeholder.
all this. In my head, I just envision, 2 tents at Butterfly Festival with somebody working behind a table where people can bring their IDs to then get the wristband to then go on a faster ride. But I understand we spoke about, the 2 lines, and then are there 2 people working? Is there 2 Parks and Rec staff working with line resident, line non-resident at a ride? How would that look? But I think this is a great step, and I think the residents will be very happy.
Yeah. We were surprised at the volume of non-residents. We knew it was creeping up, but to actually get the numbers. So we do fully support the idea. We just have to work out the logistics.
Which WebTrack would be invaluable for that. Where's Danielle? I didn't mean to cut you off, Jackie. I only say it, Danielle, because we have an infrastructure system already with our kids that are participating on our rec programs. That would be an easy conduit that if you're registered for any city sport, for example, softball, soccer, basketball, any of it, it's an immediate conduit that, hey, are you WebTrack? You already know what they're paying versus in-city price versus not city price. It's an email that any of them can send out saying, hey, WebTrack, come and get a bracelet at the rec center. Something like that. Just try to streamline that process as a thought item.
How did we determine that 70% of non-residents?
So we used a system of pinging cell phones. So where the home address of the cell phone owner lives is where they're pinged to. And it may not be 100% accurate, but when you see, it's pretty close to pretty accurate because you can see the trends and the changing trends over the last several years.
So we basically, it would have to be on the entry level that we determine if they're residents or non-residents.
Well, we'll work on a system of whether there are tickets. I mean, one of the issues that we found is even if you're not a non-resident, to have you be able to ride over and over again is congesting the lines, that maybe we need to also attach a ticket requirement to non-residents. So we'll look at all those details.
Good.
Yeah, I think if, I mean, maybe not, this is not the forum to go over into details of the whole thing.
Right, we're working on it.
All right, so I won't say anything else.
All right, perfect. The next two items relates to the drop-off area with Lions Creek Middle. So we've been seeking funded to complete the road improvements as part of our commitment to get this going. And we're also still evaluating the need for additional fencing around the preserve area. And with that, an agreement with the school board will be coming before the commission for consideration in April, so.
So just to clarify on that, we will have an agreement before you, right before we go to the school board, and the commitment that the city is being asked to make is to improve 2 driveways out on Serco, because they're actually they're onto city right-of-way, and the school board has asked, and we have said, if it is warranted, that we fence the natural area. I'm a little reluctant, once we swap the kids to the back, do we still need to fence the natural area? Because we have natural areas all over the city, and I'm a little concerned that if we start fencing them, we'll be fencing all of them. So we're budgeting it and have committed in the draft agreement that you'll see that we'll study that. But once the kids are moved to the back of the school, we may not need it. The issue was the kids being dropped off at the front and shortcutting to the rec complex where their ride awaited. So we're working on that.
Okay. We have also received a request to provide for additional community outreach or social media personnel at an estimated annual cost of approximately $110,000. That includes benefits. We're currently reviewing social media best practices, and we're doing a comparison of the number of social media posts provided by Coconut Creek as compared to some of our surrounding cities. So we'll continue to evaluate this request. We'll seek input from the commission via the category classification listing form that we'll provide, and then come back to the commission for a recommendation for next steps.
I think it's great that this is here. The number one method of communication in 2025 is social media. People have it at their fingertips. I think for us to take this step and get somebody devoted strictly to this to provide good, informative content is, I think, I don't want to say it's the best thing in this packet, but the residents need information. They crave information, and they're limited in how they get information. So by hiring somebody strictly for this, I think is very good. So thank you. But I see our face over here to my left, son. I don't want to call her out, but she was snickering.
Okay.
So it'll be on your list to prioritize.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. I support what Commissioner Wasserman said.
All right, so the next item is we also got a request to provide for an additional code compliance officer for South Creek at an estimated cost of $120,000 to $150,000. We're currently reviewing the statistics on the code compliance cases, workload of our current staff, and other data to fully evaluate this request. So we'll continue to do our research on this, and then we'll also seek input from all the commissioners via the classification listing, and then come back to the commission with a recommendation once we have compiled all of that information
So
for
we'll
next
have
steps.
that before we prioritize. We'll have that before we are asked to prioritize.
Data?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all represent the city, but as the commissioner over that area, I'm not okay with this. And I'm going to be honest. Code has been a hot topic in South Creek, whether it's been the past year or 2 years, when the SECO started 3 years ago, and they had a president who was doing it, and then, I mean, this is a hot button issue. And I think if we don't go out into South Creek and get more input and and them to speak up more about it, I'm not okay with this. And I'm not into getcha gotcha. That's not what I don't want that for the community in my district. But it is our district. It is our city. I'm with you. I hear you. But if we're going to do something like that, I really think we need to get we need to do, just like we did with restaurants and with the forks and the silverware, we got input. I'd really appreciate a more concerted effort to get input from the entire community rather than the SECO that really is a very small sect. And they do pack a punch, and I respect, Dan, I respect Hobby so much. He's a phenomenal guy, and I don't know if this is coming from them or whoever, but I do think this needs a more input from the community there. That's my take.
Okay. I like that, Commissioner Wasserman, from the community, but also, on the other hand, is there a need for an additional officer? And are we complying across the board? Are we able to comply across the board? That there are certain areas in South Creek that could be in violation, okay? And are we selectively enforcing our code because of certain circumstances?
So I think Jackie's extraordinarily correct. I will defer to the district commissioner. I will make a suggestion to the district commissioner that this probably is a very salient town hall forum. If you wanted to conduct a town hall about this, I think that's exactly how we do district issues, if there's something in the district going on. And I would suggest you do that. And I think if staff orchestrates it and runs it, I think that's something that you can get the right feedback that you're looking for. Because I can tell you this right now, the people my friends that live in South Creek, they bought those places for a very specific reason. And it was to not have code knocking on their door. You want to buy in an HOA, you subject yourself to the HOA. But so I defer to the district commissioner, and I would just make a suggestion that a town hall could be a good avenue to get that information.
Yeah, and I speak for, with the five of us, if that's what the five of us think we should do, if that's how we want to garner information or gain information, then
It's a good public forum.
have at it.
I'd go. Go and listen.
All right, so
Before we move
For
on,
time.
can I ask, I would like to add one more thing to the non-capital.
okay.
Hello. So I'm going to make it quick, all right, just for you. So the equestrian park is currently fenced, and the canine handlers, the canines and the canine handlers currently don't have a permanent home. Right now, they're working behind the temporary Station 113 and wherever else they can manage. And so I'd like to move forward. The expenditure has already been made to fence that 5-acre equestrian park. And their police presence there on occasion would also provide some security to that rural area as well at that dead-end road. And I'd like to suggest that be dedicated. We've already made that expenditure, and if we could find something for them to have some respite from the heat as well, I'd like to propose that we utilize that for them.
Mayor, I'm actually going to back you on that, because I think what's been going on there, it's good to have some of our people in that neighborhood too, kind of corral some of the issues that we've had. So I'm on board with that. If we can add that to the line item and get them a lean-to or a barn system up there for protection and get them out of the heat, I'm absolutely on board with that, Mayor.
I don't know if we have electricity there or not. I was thinking about, we don't.
We do not know.
So a couple of things. One is the park has deed restrictions for passive recreation, so we will need to maintain some future passive recreation. And
Well, maybe we can go and watch them do their demonstrations there.
No, and I absolutely think that we can establish a portion of the property for the canine exercise. We do, it appears, and we're just looking at this, that the deed restrictions would require that it be open to all residents of Broward County. It was a dedication from Broward County when we got that property. So we're looking at that. So I think, yes, absolutely, we can work on that, and we'll bring forward a more thorough plan with the budget.
Perfect. I beg your pardon?
The 5 acres.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
I defer to the district commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I do have one more item to discuss before we move on. Basically, we're currently reviewing the commission salaries, and we do anticipate proposing a modest increase based on survey data that we've collected. So we're still working through all the details. We do not have a formal number or proposal at this time, but we will keep the commission informed as we move forward through this process. All right. And as a reminder, we'll be summarizing these requests for you to, the ones we got consensus on, we'll move forward with, and then summarize the others for ranking before we move forward. Now, for the next slide, I'm going to go through this one really quickly. This basically just shows our major rates and fees and how they're set. I'm not going to go through each one in the essence of saving time, but I did want to jump over to the water and wastewater rates. Basically, our ordinance now calls for an increase of the greater of 2.5%, or CPI, which was 2.8%. However, we have been in discussions with Broward County Water and Wastewater Services regarding necessary infrastructure upgrades to meet the EPA's PFAS regulations. So in mid-2024, we did get notification of a 7% increase in water rates for fiscal year '25. As well as increase in sewer rates from Broward County. So wastewater costs also increased an average of 9%. So the county estimates that the total cost for PFAS would be around $407 million, give or take, once they finalize the process. And that could lead to the water bills increasing 2 to 3 times for customers in the future.
Yes.
So basically what they've said to help manage that impact, they have built in rate stabilization measures into their rates in the long term. So what they plan to do is to smooth over those rate increases, and they're looking at 10% increase over the next several years to be able to meet the needs for PFAS. So what the city is basically doing, we're looking at changing our ordinance, because right now we could only go up by 2.8%, which is far from the 9% county increase that we're facing. We're going to propose an ordinance change where that we could look at the CPI 2.5%, or the increase from Broward County, because that is a large part of our operating budget in the Water and Wastewater Fund.
Because to tell you, at the Broward County Water Advisory Board, the whole meeting was dedicated, all the presentations were dedicated to PFAS. And it was astounding the amount of money that they were going to go out for bond in order to do this, to have an alternate one of 2 types of treatment in order to do this. But I just was wanting to ensure that we set aside when that cost is coming to us. So you've obviously gotten more detail. The end of the story at the last presentation was that our water bill would be 2 to 3 times what it was today when all was said and done after they implement. But in the capital costs, that will come incrementally. You got more detail than we did about that.
Right, so that's the last notification we got from the county. They don't have their fiscal year '26 budget finalized, or the finance department is still working through that long-term financial plan.
Okay.
So they will not necessarily commit to future rate increases.
Okay.
But we are in communication with them, and as soon as we have information, then we can pivot accordingly based on that. But the last communication was that they're going to try their best to smooth it out, so we're not hit with too large of an increase in any given year, but they are looking at potentially 10% increases. Now, we ourselves have looked at our water and wastewater fund, and we're considering proposing a 6% increase, which will be effective June 1st, because we have looked at the long-term financial position of the fund, and even though the county raised their rates by the 9%, we'll be able to work with the 6% increase, and we'll continue to monitor that. Part of why we're doing that is we do expect with AMI there may be some trade-offs there, so we're trying not to increase our rates too quickly, but we will be actively monitoring that situation moving forward.
And I appreciate that, and not only monitoring it, but again, education is everything, and the communication is everything, so that residents realize why the increases, and especially as the incremental increases increase.
Mm-hmm. Is there, and I'm shifting to the left side of the page, Is there a discussion with your department of increases of fire assessment and anything? I mean, I don't know if it's too soon to say, but
Right, it's early in the process because we haven't gotten all the requests from the department, so we haven't really made any final determination on rate increases as
understood.
yet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is really a strange conversation because when I was up in Tallahassee, I actually met with the DEP. And the only thing they've actually approved with any of the PFAB studies are just studies. They haven't approved anything else throughout the state. So I don't know if there's a disconnect going on or if the county's trying to get ahead of this, but certainly the conversations make me scratch my head because I actually met with the guy from the state and he said the only thing that was done was study approvals. So it's kind of weird that we're talking about raising rates and they're up there at the
Right.
state talking to just studies. So I don't know where the disconnect is.
I think you're absolutely right. What we're proposing, and there's just because there's been so many questions asked about what do we expect the rates to be, what do we expect the rates to be? So what we understand from both the county and from the state is they don't know. They know there will be something, but the range could be from here to here. What we're proposing is to deal with the current rate increase, which is the county 9% this year. That would be the proposed 6%, which is below the 9% county increase. And then we're just trying to be prepared because I think there are a lot of issues that are going to start hitting residents related to water. It's all going to be about water. Is it 10% from the county? You know, it depends on what the decisions are. It may be nothing, but we just wanted to be prepared.
I appreciate
So we
that.
do expect the need for the 6% increase. We're only trying to be proactive in understanding how everything will come together with the AMI meters, the increase from the county, the current increase from the county, and then potential increases.
I don't support it. I don't support raising it to 6%, 7%, whatever you want. I think we keep it at 2.5%. I think we enter into a robust education effort. I think we blame the person who's to blame, which is Broward County. I don't support us proactively increasing something that may or may not happen.
No.
If we have, I understand that the county's already issued that they're increasing it, right? I get that, but I can't in good faith support this because one of the number one issues of residents right now is their water bill. And if we're going to start educating, there's not enough time to educate between a rate increase now and June.
Well,
There's just simply not. So what's going to happen is over the summer, when people are filling their pools and they're doing these things, they're going to go from having a $150 water bill to a $350, $400, $500 water bill, and they're not going to be educated for it. So I can't support that now.
Well,
That's my opinion.
how do we pay for the water that's going to cost
We
us
figure it out.
more?
I think we figure it out. I think it's too early with a lack of education effort. That's my opinion, because I believe that there's a couple big issues for residents. This is one of them, and I think we're all remiss if we don't see and hear that in regards to
do.
water usage.
We do, because of the meters themselves.
I'm with you, Sandy. I can't support a 6% increase. I think that we need an education effort and an opposition effort to what Broward County's doing, because Broward County is going ahead of the norm right now. So Commissioner Brody's correct. These are studies that I don't believe are going to be enacted in the state, but Broward County, this is public safety. I agree it's a very big public safety issue as well. But we have not done, as a city, the appropriate education to have that significant of a rate increase. That's my opinion.
Are we getting this increase from the county? The city is getting this increase from the county.
That is
So
correct.
we're looking to
Who we buy for.
offset it.
Right.
A portion of
A
it,
part of it.
exactly.
2/3.
I'll bring in the guy's card and we can make some phone calls. I'll have you guys make some phone calls to figure out what the heck's going on here because this is a huge disconnect. I think the county's pushing something that the state's not pushing. There's also a lot of grants and stuff I found out that we could be actually asking for. So I'll bring the card in tomorrow.
Good.
Anxious to hear.
Yeah.
No, it was definitely an eye-opener.
Now, the study is if there's PFAS in the water, is that what the study is? Or what
So-
it's going to cost us to rectify the fact that there's PFAS in the water?
So the state, the DP,
There's two issues here.
has said, we're going to give you money to do a study. And they're going to give you money to go, how can you fix the problem? So there's two studies. That's all they're paying for. That's all that's out there. That's it. So I don't know where they're going. We're going to start cleaning up the water when their studies aren't even been paid for yet.
Because they're citing, actually cited timelines of when they needed to purchase, the capital, the treatment, and then
county did?
the 2029 to implement.
Just like they hurried us through the waste management stuff, right?
Well, I
don't
know.
believe their timelines at all.
So I'm anxious to know if that is
So
a
clearly
fact
willing to
check.
come back with
or
with
not.
more
I'll
details
bring the
on
card
this
in
one.
tomorrow, and you
Okay.
guys can start doing some due diligence.
Commissioner Bogan has spearheaded the PFAS effort, and he's not wrong. I mean, if you look at 10 years ago, acceptable levels in the water, I mean, he's the resource on that county commission right now because he's pushed it. That being said, I've shared with staff, I'll share with all of you, I'm gone all next week, I'm in Tallahassee all next week, and our staff has set up meetings with DEP and some other entities, so this is something I'm happy to engage in as well.
Yeah, he co-chairs the Water Advisory Board now, so
Osama's calling me.
Osama's calling you.
You want to take
Well,
that call?
that's a
You
very
want to take that call?
That's a
'Cause
very timely
You may
call.
want to call a recess, Mayor, because he may want to,
Hey, Osama.
you want to recess for 5 minutes? You want to talk to him?
He hung up.
I only say it because he's the guy to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's do this. How
That's
about
what
this?
I asked for
There
it
there were
ahead
a
of
lot
time.
there were a lot of questions raised as to whether this is studies, their current increases, so let us get more details together. There he is. Osama, you're in the middle of the commission meeting.
We can't hear him, so we can't do that.
I think he knows that.
He-
Just so you know, there's an issue in commission chambers right now because my phone isn't even working.
Okay.
Because of the internet. So if,
I'll just
I mean,
text him.
I'll give you the opportunity, I mean, Mayor,
Yeah. Let's recess for
Okay.
5 minutes. We're almost there. We'll call the commission meeting back to order.
Let's finish this one. Okay. Can I make a suggestion? So I had a good conversation with Osama from his sickbed, and he said the EPA has required that all of the utilities upgrade to address the PFAS issue by 2029. Broward County is
The DEP or the EPA?
EPA.
Federal.
Federal.
Previous administrations or the current administration?
What
It's an important question.
I understand. So I don't know all the answers. So what I would like to
Can we put them on
suggest.
speakerphone?
No.
Okay.
Because so what I'd like to suggest is that we do a white paper detailing all of these issues so that we can separate out what our costs are from our current capital improvement costs are, what the county's current capital improvement costs are, and what the PFAS issues are, just so that we make an informed decision. So we'll start working on that right away.
I would suggest, Madam Rose, that we need to start a resident outreach effort now. Because the truth is, if the mayor, it could be a video series, whatever it is, because we need to start educating our residents that this isn't us.
Right.
You're going to see a huge increase in your water bill because of Broward County.
Absolutely.
And if they start seeing it on their bill before we educate them appropriately, we're the bad guys.
Okay.
And the truth is, we're not.
And not only that, all forms of social media.
Agreed.
After we get all the facts.
All right.
So we'll go forward and work on that so that we're prepared. We'll present the best option we can, and then you can make the decision.
Right.
Mayor, if you could circulate to the city manager, to circulate to all of us some of those updated things you've received.
The PowerPoints.
Correct.
Absolutely, because they were very clear. So it was alarming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
You have them.
They were in your Wednesday report.
from which one?
Last Wednesday.
Last Wednesday's report.
Okay. I didn't
I can resend them. I'll resend them. Okay.
Can I go back and revisit the legal fees for the landfill? Looking at the timing of when some of those funds need to be expended, that to retain some of those experts and stuff that we may need to retain, assuming if we have to move forward, that some of the times needs to be upfront. We would hope that, as we said, that we don't have to spend that amount of money, but what we don't want to do is be trying to hire experts and realize that we're hitting budget constraints. So we would request that you do allocate $2 million.
So there was a phone a friend on the break?
Maybe.
It was a lifeline.
I support the mayor's proposition.
It was a lifeline. Commissioner Wasserman?
If it's
I agree.
front-loaded year one,
Yes.
I'm fine with that.
Vice Mayor Reilly? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Tonight's the night for phone a friend.
Good thing we have friends.
That's right.
All right, so that concludes the presentation. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the mayor for, however you'd want to handle it, to go around the table for input from all the commissioners, so we could get that documented and summarized.
Absolutely. All right, Commissioner Rydell?
Candidly, I think all of my comments were in a roundtable fashion discussed. I don't have anything additional. I'll bring things up, obviously, at our future workshops and things of that nature.
That's great.
But I think I've been succinct. I think my thoughts and consensus has been succinct. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Wasserman?
I agree. I think as we went through, we were able to talk about the different things, and I got nothing more. And as things come our way, I'll speak up.
Stay tuned. Commissioner Brody?
No, I think I'm pretty good. Just one quick question to the city manager. There was a demand crosswalk. Is that going to be included in this budget cycle?
The demand crosswalk at Winston Park?
Yes.
So the warrants weren't met for the crosswalk at that location. However,
Even though we've had like 7 accidents in that intersection in the
I was going
last
to say,
month.
however, what we have found, and the traffic management team met on that, and there's a very clear issue with the left turning movements having a line of sight problem, and so we've already reached out. You hit on an issue that there is a real issue. So Broward County is doing an expedited review of that intersection Probably won't be the demand crosswalk, but it will be a modification of that signal, is what we expect.
Okay, so the people crossing from the neighborhood to the Publix are still unguarded and still in danger of being run over, even though in the last 2 or 3 months, and we could pull this up, I know the police department's here, we could pull up those accidents. Hell, we had a motorcycle accident, the guy got killed in that intersection. So it concerns me that we're not looking at this the right way, because I see a lot of people crossing that street, and I really think we need to kind of look at this a little bit better than we're looking at it, considering how many accidents happen at that intersection, how many accidents happen at that crosswalk area. But it's not really a crosswalk area, it's crossing from the neighborhood to the shopping center.
No, and I understand the area that you're talking about. Now, the good news is that the recent motorcycle accident, the guy, it was not a fatality, that was a mistake on social media, but it is a
6 months ago, there was an accident with a motorcycle in exact spot where I'm asking.
So at the intersection or the ped crossing?
At the ped crossing.
Okay, so we will relook at both of those. It did go to the traffic management team, and they focused on the intersection, but I'll ask them to relook at it.
To jump on Commissioner Brody's comment, I know Mayor Welsh and myself has said that there's a very easy correction, not at the shopping center intersection. Obviously, we can't control it at the Winston Park and Lyons intersection. There should be no turn without a turn signal.
That's the modification to
I
the
mean,
signal
Sandy, we've
principle.
said on this dais for a long time. We've said that. We've transmitted it to the county. That would alleviate a ton of issues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole reason the area is so bad, we created another stoplight because somebody did die in that section. So it's not getting better. We got to have the county work on a better solution than what it is.
It's also a suggestion of, as long as you transmit something publicly, there's a liability issue that we're aware of it. The negligence falls on Broward County, not Coconut Creek.
So we have asked them just last week, and I would say Sergeant McManus has been very helpful, asked the county to expedite that study, because it looks like there's a very clear solution, which is not to allow that free flow left. But the pedestrian crossing is something we'll need to look at again.
Thank you.
I got that on the list. Put that on your list, too.
It's on its record. Always.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you, Mayor. You've got a list of what I can-
Vice Mayor Raley?
Yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything. There is one issue, though, that I would like to address, and that is Coconut Creek High School.
Yes.
It does bear our name. I'm hoping that we could do something to make it a little more appealing. There are some, and I know it's on their property, on school property, but there are major holes in the road where they actually have cones in them.
In their parking lot.
In the parking lot, in the parking lot. Like I said, I know it is their property, but if there's anything that we can do or someone we can reach out to about. Yeah, yeah. We need to do something in that school.
Give me $100, I'll get some cold pack in your pack.
Can we do
If
a
possible.
community project?
You know the problem, and this is just historical?
Right, it's,
Well, it's not just that. We took over the landscape rights to maintain the landscaping and the nature preserve. We bought a repeater system in there. They won't even let, and Madam Rose, correct me if I'm wrong, I know you brought this up, I want to say 2019. They won't even let our guys in there to do work.
Really?
So it's not even we
Even
can
with
send
the
our
new
crew to fix the
administration?
asphalt because they won't even allow
Even
it.
with the new administration?
And I would agree, I would jump in with her and saying that I do think with Dr. H being there and actually speaking with him at Broward Days, we saw him numerous times when Commissioner Brody and I were up there. I think he is amenable to Coconut Creek. I do think he was, he's looking forward to the conversation in the April meeting with Lions Creek. But I do think he was very proud of his time with Do the Right Thing, and he got a little buy-in. So I do think maybe revisiting the conversation couldn't hurt.
Right.
I mean, obviously, when there's a new person in charge, a lot of things can change.
Well, Vice Mayor Raley,
certainly
could we do a community project and bring maybe other business partners in that they might allow? We did a community project there one time before, and other members of the community and business members of the community came and participated. That seemed to be well received. Is that a possibility to get the result of what you're looking for?
I mean, we have staff that can fix it, correct? I mean, we do, I'm not trying to make a job here, but like, we have public, I mean, Harry, we have people that can go fix a pothole, correct?
Utilities and engineering.
So I mean, the vice mayor's sound in her request, so can you ask if we can go fix, ask the principal, Dr. Neer will happily say yes.
I would hope so.
Maybe that's all the approval we need.
Yeah.
Let's just do it. Whatever, you know, we always.
Harry and I will go out and cold pack.
We always used to say at the schools, you know, you come on Friday and it looks one way, but then you come back on Monday, you don't know what'll happen, you know? So, could be a brand new door.
There you go. Well, thank you. Yeah, we could, absolutely. And also, while we're talking to the county on traffic lights, on Lyons, by the west gate of Winmore, across from Hammocks, when you're coming south, there's a red arrow that flashes sometimes, red, or is solid red. I witnessed 4 vehicles in front of me go right through that solid red arrow, turning in to Winmore. It could be a big revenue maker, but more concerned with the safety issue, of course. So I did try with an article in April's News and Views to educate what they should be doing on solid reds and flashing reds, and that it's treated just like a red light. But the timing is so off on that light that there's no set time. You never know what you're going to come up on, whether it's going to be flashing, whether it's going to be solid. So
So we
if
need to
there's
figure
a
that out.
sign that says when flashing, stop, proceed, or solid red, then go with hours. I've seen that before in New York. They've done that with lights, and I've seen it on some of our roads. So, and
I will check that out.
great, yeah. So, basically, if there's anything that we could put in our budget to promote public transportation, that's big. We're looking, now, the thing that I'm hearing, the big concern with Main Street is traffic, that we're in a quagmire now with traffic, that what is going to be once this is developed. So we have to, I know we're going to have auxiliary roads and things like that, but it's still a concern.
And I think if you are talking to your colleagues at the county, one of the things that, they're going to be presented with is a proposal to help fund Tri-Rail. And I think, Tri-Rail has been underwritten with ARPA funds, and everybody was surprised when the ARPA funds dried up. But if you are talking with your county counterparts, a $10 million investment in Tri-Rail certainly is cheaper than building another lane on 995 or the Turnpike. So
We just did
just have an opinion on that.
a field trip on the Transportation Academy last week on Tri-Rail. So we went from Cypress Creek to Boca and then did a 45-minute walkability study in and around the station into a plaza and assessed it. It was very interesting, and I have to admit, it was the first time I'd been on Tri-Rail. I will now use it. I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised.
Fastest way to MIA.
It was, that's exactly, we're bringing our son's coming in from Atlanta over Easter, and he's coming into Miami, so he doesn't know it yet, but he'll be coming back on Tri-Rail. Don't tell him yet.
What I have found the issue is not, I've taken the Tri-Rail from Hillsborough down to Broward to the courthouse.
Yes.
The issue that I have found when I've tried to do that is the connection, is the Broward Boulevard connection of
The shuttle?
Yeah, which are wildly inconsistent. So while the Tri-Rail is actually a good experience, their connections are just flawed. Like Brightline has perfected it with their shuttle services and their operability within a mile of a station. So but the problem is the county isn't going to, that's not what their investment is. Their investment is in cars, not secondary transportation.
And it was interesting because at the Boca station, the shuttle benefit was huge. And he said that Dreyfus Art, they had their own dedicated car. They bring in buses of students, and they have their own dedicated car that they take to West Palm and back. And so they formed a lot of different partnerships. And then 13th Floor has bought a piece of property right next to that station where they'll be having, retail and residential properties, which is now very popular right next to the rail. So it was really a good Good field trip. Okay. Do we have is there anything else? The roundtable was a success. And do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Thank you.
Second.
Good for you. Woo! Good for you.